you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker, what you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess, screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way, close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown! I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Clark from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it! Hits it!
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, you guys ready to have some fun today? Who's excited about today? It's a normal July 1st, summertime, not jack squat going on type of Tuesday. Sun shines out. You guys good to go for a hellaciously awesome 3-hour show? Yeah, normally is weird. I was mentioning this yesterday because I was off and I go down and see my mom. And normally you're not a week clear from the ending of the Pacer season once you get into the last day of June, which is absolutely incredible. And then the hits keep on coming, as we witnessed a little bit earlier today with the Myles Turner news, and I'll get to all that. Kevin Pelton's going to join us from ESPN a little bit later on. I'm probably going to have to find a level of nerdery to help explain, but I'll give you the surface views from a couple of different angles, and it may not be exactly what you think. Now, jackassery will prevail from some, and I'm sure I will document that. However, what you do look at here is the tenure, the 10 years of somebody that's been around here. And let's say what you want. Finals, brutal, offensively. I wish he could have found the range. Wish he could have found the distance. Alas, he did not. And was of no offensive help. But, you do have to have a certain concept to get to the 7th game of the NBA Finals. This wasn't like the first round. This wasn't like the regular season. And he has been a huge part of that. He certainly has been a lot better since the Pacers recognized how you should be able to play basketball by rehiring a good coach and getting rid of that old bald guy, or the younger bald guy that stunk, that they hired for 1 year. Nate Bjorkgren, yeah. And then making a decision on Myles and Sabonis, and some still go with Sabonis. They would have never, ever, ever sniffed the NBA Finals with Sabonis, ever. I like him too, big fan. So you realize a lot of things. You turn up the tempo. You trade for Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton, without question, was instrumental in making Myles better here. And part of it, too, was just the simple offense to where if you don't have two bigs, you don't have 33 staked out in the corner. And, I've always dealt with jackasses around here that said, well, all he does is stand in the corner. No. He's told to stand there. You think he goes over there and just leans against the fence post because he wants to. That's not true. He's told to go there. That was their offense, and that's why it sucked, and that's why they're awful. So they get out of the Malcolm Brogdon dribble, never pass, dribble, try to shoot a layup era and go into Tyrese Halliburton. And oddly enough, it was quick. It was quick in the turnaround. A year ago, you go to the Eastern Conference Finals. This past year, you go 7 games, NBA Finals, and you lose. And what you lost more than anything else was the fact that Tyrese Halliburton goes down with an Achilles injury, and he will be done for the entirety of the season. So then everybody wondered whether or not you were going to go into the luxury tax. And this is going to have a great deal to do with my faith in guys. So I do want to be clear on this. I like everybody over there a great deal. I do. I trust their decisions. I believe their decisions are sound. I will also tell you this, losing Myles Turner for Jack Squad is not sound. That's not good. That can never be, even if you don't like him, even if you believe all he does is play with Legos and he doesn't dress the way that you want him to dress, or he doesn't get enough rebounds, or whatever numbnuttery you have to say, losing him for nothing is not good. I would also suggest losing him for nothing and then have it magnified by what it looks like going into the season where you don't trust anybody else on this team to do anything because your main player is going to be out is not a good look either. It's just not. And I would tell Chad that. I would tell them, it doesn't matter to me because I could end up being wrong. Now, I haven't been wrong. I haven't been wrong about this team concept. I haven't been wrong about Myles. I mean, hell, I was the only one, me and a friend of mine named Greg, that were in his corner the entire time. He was necessary. He was a part of the evolution. Losing him for nothing looks like a straight tank. Losing him for nothing because, as Shams has reported, you don't go into a luxury tax looks cheap ass. And Stephen Simon absolutely loved, and I would too, loved being in, the spotlight online of what this team accomplished. It was awesome. Absolutely my favorite team of all time. And again, underline team. Because this is maybe where, and again, I will say, I don't know where this is going. Maybe they have more moves up their sleeve that make more sense down the road. Maybe they do. And that will be great, and we will categorize them as we go along. However, I had then, up until now, it seems a hell of a lot more faith in the other dudes on this team to be able to sustain at a quality level than others did. And before you say, well, you don't know basketball, you never played, you never do this. Well, a couple of things here. I never played, but I do know basketball. I'm very confident that I know basketball because I sure as hell have known about this for more than a minute. I felt confident after last year. I felt confident going into this year. I thoroughly understand the Halliburton situation and what you have to deal with. But what I'm trying to say is, I was sold on the team concept, and there was not a show, not a TV that I ever appeared on to where I didn't talk about it. So I believed in it. And that's the thing that is major sideswiping. It's not 10 years and you stand up for Myles. No, I believed in him, and I thought he got a lot of raw deals from jackasses. But I'm surrounded at times by jackasses. And even some friends of mine can be, for whatever reason, transformed into those jackasses. I get a lot of people saying, well, that's just a thumbs up to the organ. No, it's not. He took more money someplace else because they wanted him more someplace else. I did that 15 years ago because I knew the place where I was at was sinking like the stinking Titanic. Yes. And then they needed help over here because the operation they had going on here wasn't working for anybody. So they needed help. So I've been on the radio for so long. And I provided help. I come in and I work. So I understand that to a much lesser degree. You go to where you're wanted. And I know it hurts because Milwaukee is the hated rival. But before you jump all over Myles for making that decision, just don't look in the mirror because you may not like it. But just self-evaluate a little bit. Everybody would do the same thing. He didn't love it here. But if you get more money to go someplace else and your value is, again, as Shams has said, your value is not taken in consideration. And it sounds like the Pacers just didn't want to go into the luxury tax, which is that is every bit of their option. And I still like these guys, and I still trust these guys. I just hate the fact that I sit here right now, and all the evidence I have is to tell you that they don't believe in the same team concept with these guys that I do, or some of us do. That's what bums me out. Everybody thinks it's about 33, or it's not about that. I wanted to see these guys go at it again. Because I will always think that group had something special. Yet no matter who was up or who was down in the finals, that is what I felt about that team. I'm just not throwing out there, this is my favorite team of all time for the hell of it. I mean, that goes up against like Manning teams. And hell, I know some people out there want to discredit him years after, and you guys are the worst of the worst. But I believed in this team still. And I guess, consequently, I believed in the front office being able to do some things to make this team, or to hang in, or the ownership. All right, it will pay off for you if you do, as a result, go into the luxury tax. I don't want to see this organization viewed as cheap. And when you look right now, you look out into the landscape of those that are yapping or they're supposed to be in the know, that's how they view it. Yeah, that's not my words. I didn't frame it up that way. It's already been framed up that way. So it is more to me about where they're going. Seriously, it is so us, isn't it? Does it feel like it's so us? You go from the highest of the highs to the lowest of the lows, and all that it took was basically 7 minutes into a Game 7. And here we are. Because I can tell you there's zero way that Tyrese Halliburton and his teammates, again, if healthy, would have wanted this. They probably don't want it right now. I mean, Siakam's going to be 33 upon Halliburton's return. Surely to goodness they're not thinking about going ahead and just climbing down and then trying to climb back up again. I wouldn't suggest that. Hopefully there is something else, again, that they have in mind. There is a plan, because these guys are smart. I trust them a great deal. Am I disappointed? I am disappointed only because it does not seem that they believe in the power of this team beyond one guy. And that is something that I sat here and sold endlessly. And that's discouraging. Yeah, the other part, whatever. I mean, hell, 33 doesn't... I've talked to him twice in my life. I think twice on this show. Everybody thinks, well, he's probably happy that he has you. No, we never had a conversation. I know exactly where my support of Myles started, and it started with Grady and Big Joe making fun of him doing yoga years ago. I thought, who cares? He's out there doing something, not laying around. There's some yoga, too. And, the whole back to the basket post play like it's 1995. You guys saw what worked here, and it wasn't 1995. So, and it just kind of evolved. And then with anything else in social media, it just leads to a different level. I will be disappointed because I don't think with this particular move, I don't think that he is ever going to be. I thought there were fleeting moments a year ago when he got the credit and then it disappeared. He is constantly going to be viewed as the Jekyll and Hyde. How should I put this? The Jekyll and Hydest player of all time. I mean, you love him when he makes a shot. You hate him when he misses a shot. And he got blamed for absolutely everything. Now, you don't want to blame him for the lack of rebounding in Game 7. Rebounding wasn't the problem. The turnovers were the problem. The points off of turnovers were the problem. You don't even know the problem. So how the hell would you know the solution? You don't. I had to tell you. So it had nothing to do with any of that other than the disappointment of how much I love. And I know what you're going to say right now. I know you're all framing it up in your mind that are mad at me about one thing or the other, and you're going to say, well, it's business and sometimes you have to move on. I realize you have to move on, but I just felt that they have other options. It's not like that you're going to have to be like, I'll give you a great example. I brought this up before. Last year, what did we do? We rolled this bad boy out, didn't we? How did the season start? Not great. 5 games under 500. Hugely disappointing. There were 10 games in, and Kendrick Perkins had to be reminded in the postseason that the Pacers still had an NBA team. Everybody was done with him except for us. Why? Because we had the belief. I had that belief. I think most of you, certainly some of you, had that belief into this team concept that it was going to return and it was going to thrive. And that's exactly how that paid off. Granted, you weren't going to have the entire year this coming year to do it, but I think that you could have been more inventive than just losing them outright. If that's, again, the way that it stands, and as I sit here right now talking to you, that's the way that it stands. And you could not like him. You could be happy as hell right now, but it is not good business to lose something outright. It's just not. That is at this point, with what we know, it's a major mistake to lose somebody in that fashion. Like Tyrese Halliburton, well, that's a major mistake. He should have never played. Yeah, he was going to go out there because he had one moment to go out there and give it a try, and 7 minutes in, pop, and it was over. However, you got to do that. And, whereas what he did is he jumped in the saddle and went hard. The Pacers in this point kind of look like they're pulling back on the reins. And whether that's, organizationally speaking, or that goes up to ownership, until further notice, I have to remind you, sitting here right now with the information that you know, whether it's coming out from Shams or anybody else, it looks like that there's a non-belief in the team to put out a quality product, and there's a unwillingness to go into a luxury tax situation after the type of season that they had, because they don't believe they should with Tyrese Halliburton down. And I will also tell you this, guys. Tyrese Halliburton needs dudes too. I mean, he is a dude. Don't get me wrong. He is a dude, but he needs guys. That's the quality of a team. The quality of a team is you do need one another. And so many times that gets lost in the shuffle. That's my massive disappointment. It's nothing personal. He's going to move on and either work or I'm assuming he is going to be very glorified in terms of what Brook Lopez did. And asked to do even more. You're just going to have to choke on it a little bit, because that is the most hated, maybe outside of the Knicks, but probably even more so than the Knicks, hated rival of the Pacers. And now you saw where Damian Lillard got cut loose, and you hear that Giannis isn't happy. We'll see where all this goes. I can tell you this. Yeah, in terms of what you want to do with Myles, anybody that plays basketball, drive and dish style, which, by the way, is everybody, anybody that plays basketball like that would enjoy having somebody that was a shot maker most of the season, with the exception of the NBA Finals where he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. That is of value. And again, that's why it's not 1995. That's why it's 2025 in the NBA. One of these days, I hope you do understand fully just what he did add beyond just making fun of the dude all the time. And also understand the reason why the Pacers got to where they ended up being this season, and especially for the last two, also involved him. He was a part of it. It's a team concept. I'm just disappointed that there didn't seem like that there's a great deal of belief in it. All right, we can discuss that. I got a lot more for you. As I mentioned, Kevin Pelton's going to join us. Sidery's going to be back on here coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, so a lot of the nerds out there are going to be unhappy about that. That's too bad. We got that for you. Bobby Marks is going to join us tomorrow, right? Is that true?
I have not heard back from him on
Bobby
tomorrow.
Marks. And I do want to get your thoughts all day long. I cleared some space. I'm not stroking out. See, here's what I get. Seems like JMV is stroking out about losing a guy who slowed down the pace. The team just got quicker, believe it or not. I'm not stroking out about anything. My problem is the whole team concept of it. Yeah, my problem is looking cheap. That's my problem. See, that's where you guys don't understand. And that's why I'm here to try to explain it to you. JMV, you could tell the writing was on the wall when Rick decided not to play him against meaningful minutes in the finals. I would agree, Tyler, from this angle. Any coach with a guy that's as broke as a joke, as I explained at the time, is going to do the same thing. You're trying to find anything. It doesn't matter who it was at that time. If somebody was struggling and somebody else is doing it better, they're going to be in there. That part doesn't matter. JMV, the funniest part about today, all the people who made a personality out of hating Myles Turner have not one suggestion as to how Indy replace him. And that's part of it. Now, I'm disappointed in the team concept of it. That's the only thing. And we'll respond with you. I moved everything back because I consider this a hot topic today. Actually, I'd had Tucker Barnhart, who retired, and we want to give his years of service in Major League Baseball and one of our big-time friends of the show the type of spotlight it deserves. Tucker's going to join us on tomorrow's show. And then I was talking to Tricia Whitaker yesterday, and Tricia Whitaker and Sydney Parrish are starting a podcast, and we were going to bring them on today. I will bring them on the show coming up tomorrow. So we'll move it back a day to make sure you guys have a great deal of influence, if you want, with your voice, or however you want to view it. But today is an interesting day. And I do want to get your thoughts because, again, the most Jekyll and Hyde-ish of Pacer players of all time would be Myles Turner, and he takes a deal and the money to play someplace else. And how do you view that? That in terms, not even just that, but the direction that they're going, does it seem like that they're going on the cheap after an NBA Finals 7-game run? Because that's how it seems to others, and I think we can all kind of sit there and wonder the same damn thing. Hey, JMV, if your timeline is pushed back 2 years due to Halliburton's injuries, I don't know what you do with Pascal's contract. This makes you wonder. I know that for sure. All right, quick break. We'll come back. I got room for you. If you guys want to jump on board, you certainly can. We got anything to give away this week? Or
We do not.
I didn't think so because we got a short week up until Friday, right? I want to thank Greg Rakestraw, who was in for me yesterday. Fantastic work as always. I do appreciate that. Brent Halverson a little bit earlier today. We know we're getting closer and closer to the start of the football season when we have to shoot a little promo stuff for our Larceny Bourbon Locks and Luna Azul Tequila Shot. So I'm very excited about that. Saw Brent a little bit earlier today. And I got a lot more from you. And I know that I'm going to get a lot of jackassery, but let me go ahead and warn you beforehand. If you give it to me, I don't want to hear any crying or any whining when you get return fire. No whining, no crying. You understand? So if that's what you're feeling, as they say it, if you feel it and you deal it, you're going to have to deal with it on the other side. And James has already been instructed, I think, by others with a dump. Have you been instructed on the dump button today?
I'm ready on the dump button over here. Don't worry.
Todd came in here and said, we're going to have to worry about the dump button on you. Yeah, no, it's all good. Seriously, I'm excited. You really don't want to know why I'm excited? Do you really want to know?
Why?
All right. Tell you what, that's a tease. I'll tell you truly why I'm excited. We'll do that on the other side. Your calls and more. Kevin Pelton, Evan Sidery, and we are good to go on this Tuesday. Do not go anywhere. Myles Turner is going to be playing for the Milwaukee Bucks. I do want your thoughts and the direction of this team right now. 239-1070, the stream, the app, HD Radio, the AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
If anybody needed a victory, get the off the racetrack! You stupid son of a. I think we have to start again.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Oh, the late, great R. Miller right there, the re-entry. Myles Turner's going to Milwaukee. We'll get your thoughts on that over the course of the day. I give you something I just got here, right? Myles will get booed so bad when he comes back for going to join Giannis. Ayton will be better if he comes here. Yeah, that's what you want, a quitter. Hey, at least when Myles stunk in the 7-game series of the finals, he was like stinking. He just couldn't hit anything. You get, the quitter. You want a quitter. You want a guy that's constantly injured and quits. Well done, Chris. This is why some of you I can't take seriously. Exactly why. Yeah, you know what? I can't make it to the game on time because there's too much ice around my house. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's what you want right there. Good idea. What other plans you guys have? I hope the Pacers have better plans than you guys. That's my hope. I do trust him, though, and I'm not mad at him because I'm always going to like him. I'm just disappointed in, hey, you know what? I'm going to raise our hand. We're done here. We're done here. You go in a 2-week period from NBA Finals in a Game 7 to having everybody believe now that you're going on the cheap and you're tanking. And you lose a 10-year guy for nothing. Hey, at least get something. Well done, Patrick. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline right now. Let me get the guy that hosted the show yesterday. So if we were to switch around the roles here, would you have rather had today or yesterday with the news here?
I mean, today is the day you can fall out of bed and do a show and do one get free.
Well, no. Don't frame it up like that. Say this is really tough. Yeah.
This is not exactly a fun day, but it's an easy day to get reaction for 3 straight hours. Certainly.
Well, I like it. Reaction. It's great.
Part of this is trust me. I'm happy I don't have to deal with this for 3 hours. 10 minutes is good enough. The word you use is the proper word. I'm disappointed, and not disappointed in Myles Turner. I don't blame him for chasing 4 years and triple-digit $1 million, knowing this is the last mega contract you are going to get in the NBA. I don't fault him a bit. I'm disappointed that there seems to be, to what I think is an overreaction, and I'm not trying to minimize Tyrese Halliburton's injury. It's a big stinking deal, but I liked the pieces that were in place, and I thought this team could have been competitive with everybody coming back other than Tyrese Halliburton. I'm not sure we're at a blow-it-up moment yet. The Pacers front office deserves a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Let's see now what other dominoes start to fall. But I'd hate to think this was a swing and a miss, and you go by the Shams Charania report basically saying, hey, this was, and I'm sure this is from Myles' side of it, but that was an aversion to going to the luxury tax after Tyrese Halliburton's injury. That's something that makes me cringe hearing that.
Yeah, I do too, because it tells everybody that you're cheap.
I'm not sure I have something witty to say around that or after that.
Yeah.
Part of that is the price of success, and frankly, you think you're going to have the ability to counteract that with ticket sales, television revenue, things like that, even in the absence of Tyrese Halliburton. There's a 7-letter word that goes before tax that sometimes you got to pay. That's part of it. We'll call it a success tax to clean it up a little bit instead. And even without Tyrese, again, if I'm running the franchise, I'm trying to keep the band together as best I can, and that probably includes Myles Turner. Now, we could 6 to 12 months from now have a completely different view of this trade and basically say, you know what, that price was too much. And yesterday, in a completely different scenario, we talked about that for the guy that retired in the last couple of days in Bojan Bogdanovic. When he was here in 18 and 19, Pacers had him on a 2-year, $21 million deal. Pacers didn't want to pay 3 years and $50 million back then, and Bojan went to the Utah Jazz, and most of us said, hey, we loved you here, but good luck with that. It's a little bit different now with it being Myles Turner some 6 years later. And so the thing that I would love to hear, and I'm not sure we'll ever get an honest answer from it, what exactly was the ceiling for the Indiana Pacers? What exactly did they offer Myles Turner? Just what is that difference between what he got in Milwaukee and what he could have had to stay here in Indianapolis?
It's Greg Rakestraw, who's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. To me, and I agree, I said this at the outset, I like those guys over there. I like Chad Buchanan as much as I like anybody, the general manager of the Pacers. I just look at this a couple of different ways. One is, as you put it, I have more faith, evidently, in this whole team than what they might right now without Halliburton. And the other angle was, all right, so he's going to go. There's a threshold to your number, and you don't want him, but I mean, you can't give him away, right?
Right.
You just can't let him go like that. That can't happen. The good organization, does that happen in good organizations? You make the argument about Damian Lillard, who was just cut loose because of it in Milwaukee, but I just don't think if you're the Pacers, you don't want to look cheap either, and you come off looking cheap here.
I would agree that is a bad look, and I'm very curious as to, if not polling the opinion, at least making sure you keep guys looped in on the conversation, a la a Tyrese Halliburton, a la a Pascal Siakam. You know, to make sure that they hear this coming from you and not hear this coming from Twitter at approximately 11:30 in the morning. Because obviously, and maybe there's been reaction and I haven't seen it, we've seen Giannis's reaction. I'm not sure we have seen that yet from Tyrese and Pascal.
Yeah, we have. Greg Rakestraw was kind enough to be in for me yesterday. I appreciate that. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right now. I'll get to your calls coming up in a minute. I did want to make sure we give this the proper respect. A mutual friend of ours called it an MLB career officially yesterday. He was going to be on today, but I didn't want it to get lost in the shuffle of the news of the midday with Myles Turner. So Tucker Barnhart's going to join us tomorrow. Career-wise, personality-wise, just being a friend, what do you think of Tucker Barnhart in the MLB career that he had?
An absolute rock-solid dude, and I didn't need to have a lengthy conversation with him last night, but I texted him at about 9:30 when that news broke, and I just said, "Hell of a run, buddy." And within 2 minutes, I got a text back. I'm not a guy that covered as a Major League Baseball player, but the fact that I got a message back that quickly tells you a lot about kind of who Tucker is and how much he values us here in Indianapolis. And frankly, I think the sky's the limit for Tucker. I know that a handful of years ago, Tucker was looking to get into coaching, and maybe not in the line that you would think. He was kind of wanting to go the college baseball route and potentially be a head coach at a major college level. I'm not sure that has changed. Obviously, there is a natural tendency for catchers because they have to think and see the entire game for 9 innings. They tend to make the best MLB managers. I'm sure if he wants to go that route, there'll be an organization that will snap him up pretty quickly and get him coaching their minor leagues and start to work him all the way through. I could see him being a major league manager. Frankly, if he wanted to go into our side of things and be, a studio talking head on MLB Network or regional sports network here or color commentator as a broadcaster, I'm sure he can do those things too. I hope for him, knowing that, financially he's in pretty good shape, he can kind of kick back and relax and enjoy things for a little bit. But I think the world is his oyster in terms of what his future could possibly be.
So Greg Rakestraw, kind enough to join us at the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Is it irony, in closing with another Myles Turner capsule for you here, that you spent the better part of 7 years or so believing that he was going to be traded or let go, or you wanted rid of him, and then on a day when everybody thought it was a foregone conclusion he would return, he ends up someplace else? Is that irony?
I believe that would be the Webster's Dictionary definition of irony.
Weird.
Absolutely. And
that
again,
is some weirdness.
I have no ill will towards Myles Turner for deciding to leave. I'm not sure if I'm upset at the Indiana Pacers for deciding they didn't want to pay him what he was able to get into the open market. I just hate the fact that 9 days after Game 7, this is the conversation we're having. I hate it.
Seems like old times. That's what I should say right here. Seems like old times.
I hate to be that person that goes, why can't we have nice things? But frankly, my friend that is the biggest Pacers fan of my colleagues and people that I work with on a daily basis literally uttered that exact same phrase at about 12 o'clock today. Why can't we have nice things? I'm typically not that guy that feels that way about local sports, but damn it, I kind of understand the way he's feeling today.
I hope that you and I can have a refreshed conversation on something that is not framed up and outlined the way that we kind of have to do it right now. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Now, again, in closing, what I would say is this, and I tried to talk about this yesterday because, frankly, the Bojan Bogdanovic kind of brought this up in my mind. Let's say this out loud. People can acknowledge it. Kevin Pritchard has had to make chicken salad out of chicken something else more than once, and it's worked. I mean, let's face it, this team was horrifically bad for 1 year, being a 25-win team. They flirted with a playoff spot the next year. They've made the Eastern Conference Finals and the NBA Finals the next 2 years. He, to a degree, has earned the benefit of the doubt. But now let's see what the counteracting move is that you let Myles walk.
It's Greg Rakestraw's got stuff going on later on this week, I'm assuming, right?
That would be – it's a nice slow week for me. It's just the Indy 11 coming up on Saturday night in terms of broadcasting from a play-by-play standpoint. You can catch me on the year in review and year preview editions of Network Indiana's Indiana Sports Talk coming up on Friday and Saturday, which means I'll see you hanging around the studio tomorrow afternoon.
Well done, buddy. Appreciate you for yesterday. Thanks for hanging out so I could go down to GC, brother.
Well, I said this on the air, and I hope you weren't listening. I hope you unplugged for the better part of the day. I said one of two things are happening. I said, one, John's going to the Odin meat locker, but it's flooding in Odin. He may not make it down.
I did.
Yeah. There's probably going to be a topless pool selfie at some point in time. So I never saw that on social media.
That's coming up on Friday. But no, 12 pounds of marinated turkey and an 8-pound brisket to smoke is what we got later on this week, buddy. That's what we're working with.
You lead a gloriously simple life, and it's absolutely wonderful. And we're all living vicariously through you.
Here's another irony. It's very ironic, I guess, that I won't eat any of it, right? Somebody else will. But, Dad, I'll buy it and bring it, and I'm not going to eat it.
You're not going like White Goodman territory with a pizza slice, are you? At this point, is that how we're getting this done?
No, my whole thing is I got to balance things out, and if I'm going to drink properly, then I probably can't eat the way that would.
Well, just try to be remotely sober by Saturday night at 6 o'clock. All right,
you got it, buddy. I appreciate you.
See ya.
It's Greg Rakestraw, the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Andrew Schwarzentrooper, by the way, down at the Odin Meat Locker. Saw him yesterday. They did flood. But, man, they were packed midday. 12 pounds. The Paradise de Watson on Friday is going to have marinated turkey and brisket all over the place. All over the place. This is Jeremy. See, there's a difference between, like, I know Jeremy didn't mean this. Jeremy, wait, ready? Did Myles leave you his jockstrap to dry your tears with? And then he says, this is a blank post meant to laugh at.
Gotcha.
See, that's how see, Jeremy, I'm not going to return fire on that because that is funny.
At least he was.
But if somebody else other than him said that, they'd get it.
At least he clarified that he was just poking
I appreciate
some fun.
It, man. I do. We need clear talk now, which is why it makes this position a little bit difficult. So I'll get to that on the other side. Having clear talk is difficult right now. I'll explain that and the reason while I'm excited. On a day that is transitional for the Pacers and everybody's kind of wondering the direction in which they're going and questioning the money spent or lack thereof. I'll give you my level of excitement coming up on the other side. And your calls at 239-1070. That's next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
We're going to the tower. Good luck.
We're going to the tower. The tower? The tower? Rapunzel! Rapunzel!
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
If I'm an Indiana Pacer right now, I'm absolutely disgusted. I am sick to my stomach. If I'm Tyrese Halliburton, I am breaking things right now. If I'm Rick Carlisle, I'm furious at just what's happened because they were unwilling to spend a little bit of luxury tax money to hold this team in place for a year when Halliburton came back, to go to a team that they hate. They hate the Bucks. So it's going to take a while to digest this. And if Giannis tweets later today a big smiling emoji and indicates that he is happy as a clam, the Bucks can declare a win. But I'm not sure the balance of power was changed in the Eastern Conference, even though this has been a stunning turn of events.
Was that really Brian? Did he really say that, Brian Windhorst? When was that this morning?
That was just on First Take.
Two things. So do you know, was that before the Lillard?
I am not sure. It's from here.
Because they dumped Damian Lillard too. Yeah. So was that before the Lillard dumping? And that almost sounded like it was fake a little bit.
I'm not sure.
Did you notice that? It kind of sounded like that was maybe something. It was AI driven. That's what he said?
This is from First Take. Now, it was posted at 12:33. I don't know when he was on the air exactly, but
makes sense. Part of the timing, by the way, Myles Turner's off to Milwaukee. That was reported by Shams a little bit earlier today. Kevin Pelton of ESPN coming up at the 5 o'clock hour. Sidery will be here as well. I owe you guys a lot of calls, and we'll do that coming up in a minute. But a part of the timing that is being expressed there by Brian Windhorst, and our guest tomorrow, Bobby Marks, mentioned that I think a little bit earlier today. Right?
I still have not heard from Bobby.
Okay, well, hopefully he gets good tomorrow because we have to have that content for sure. Was the timing in which now it makes you wonder, did the Pacers think that the market was dry and that he would come back for their number? And here's why. Because yesterday you saw, and I'm not going to count Jaren Jackson Jr., but you saw four pivots come off the board and go different places. Brook Lopez from Milwaukee to the Clippers, which, clearly opened up the spot where now Myles is going to be, another version of that. Clint Capella went from the Hawks to the Rockets. I think Luke Cornett from the Celtics to the Spurs, and Kevon Looney from the Warriors to the Pelicans. So that was a part of the timing that Bobby Marks had mentioned, and part of the timing in which I think that Windhorst there was alluding to. Yeah, Litzy says, there it is. That is him saying that. It almost sounded fake for a minute to me. It does make you wonder how the teammates feel about that, because it's not lost on anybody around here that Pascal Siakam has said more than a number of times one of the reasons why he wanted to come here was because of Myles. He also talked about the dark time that he had in general at the end of his career in Toronto. So hopefully the Pacers, and I got a lot more to get to, and I will get to your calls coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. I promise you that. But it's just more than my defense or support of Myles over the years. Hopefully the Pacers have something more, and they didn't get outmaneuvered in this case, or didn't get the right view of the market that opened up with their hated rival in Milwaukee for one of the guys that helped get them in the past 2 years to the Eastern Conference Finals and then the NBA Finals. Hopefully it's more than that. Hopefully that they have something else going on here. My disappointment comes from the whole look at the team. I trust the team. I wanted to see this team come back again, understandably, without Tyrese Halliburton, but I have faith in it. And I'm hoping that that is not a lack of faith / cheapness with the Pacers here more than anything else. A quick break, we'll come back. I mentioned my excitement. I'll get to that and a lot more. And part of the reasons why in this world where you don't have a lot to go on, it's tough because I'm going to have to tell you, well, remember, we're in the now. Hopefully there is something else going on, but that is not at all clear at this point in time. We'll get to that as Myles moves on after 10 years now to the Milwaukee Bucks, according to ESPN.com. And Shams, that story and your calls coming up at 239-1070 next.
The Ride with JMV.
We're putting the band back together.
Forget it. No way. We're on a mission from God.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, Kevin Pelton of ESPN, 5 o'clock hour. Sidery is going to be here, too. Shout out to Tucker Barnhart, who retired, made it official yesterday, was going to join us today, but I didn't want it to get lost in the shuffle of today's news, so we moved it back until tomorrow. Tricia Whitaker and Sydney Parrish have a podcast that they're starting. They were also scheduled for today. They will join me coming up on tomorrow's show as well. A short week, actually shorter than usual. Greg was in for me yesterday, so thanks to Greg Rakestraw for being a part of the show and doing this for 3 hours on Monday. We will be out on Friday of later on this week for the 4th of July, and it is party time is what we're going to do. The news of the day, Myles Turner, 4 years, $107 million with the Bucks. And that includes a player option for the year 2028-2029. And you can view that a couple of different ways. I'll start right here. It's funny to see people that always wanted to see him go and now cussing him because of where he went. Okay. Very logical. I mentioned that I was excited. And I also mentioned that it's kind of a tough situation to take a firm stance. And here's why. I have a great deal of trust in those that run this organization. I like them a great deal. I like Kevin. I like Chad. I like Ted. I like Ryan Carr. Obviously, Rick Carlisle, without saying. I don't know Steven Simon very well, but he did get out to me, I think, on social media last week. I should probably respond one of these days, but I loved this team a year ago. I loved this team a year ago so much that I, much like I was after the Eastern Conference Finals in the sweep by Boston, I was, remember, very outspoken about wanting to see everybody come back because that's how much I liked it, and I had a belief in it. And they go all the way. They paid that back. You go all the way 7 games, NBA Finals. You lose disappointingly. And while I understand that the dynamic, like any dynamic, will change on a dime, as it did 7 minutes in with the injury to Tyrese Halliburton. Now, this may be a little bit about me kind of kicking and screaming because I want to see them compete because I'm a believer in the team that they had. Not going to the NBA Finals or winning it all without Tyrese Halliburton, but being a high-quality Eastern Conference team. Now, even knowing what everybody else is doing in the East right now, knowing what Atlanta, you see all these other teams, right? Free agency started yesterday, and you see all these other teams that are now, I should say last night officially, but you see all these other teams that now are making run, like Orlando, started with Desmond Bane. They're bringing guys in. You see the Hawks bringing guys in. You know, the Pistons were going to be good anyway. They're adding a little bit. You see all these teams in the East now believing that they're not too far away from being competitive, you know, given the situation. You know, the situation here, the situation that happened with Milwaukee at the time with Lillard, who is no longer a part of that team now, reportedly. And then obviously with Jason Tatum in the Celtics, you have a lot of teams thinking, all right, so we're going to go ahead and create a short window for ourselves right now and go for it. You know, Orlando was on the rise anyway. I don't know about Atlanta. But you do see teams positioning themselves because they feel that there's an opportunity in the East. Well, I feel like those teams feel about the East regarding the Pacers. That's how I felt about the Pacer team if they were able to, you know, go into the luxury tax and add to it, bring back guys. I'm not talking about add anything greatly, but just something here or there. They, to me, were entirely sustainable at a quality level in the East. And you're not going to completely fall down the stairs and into the basement without Myles. I'm not trying to say that whatsoever. But if you end up doing this because of the finances, because you don't want to spend, then that, to me, equates to the lack of trust that you have with this team concept, with this group, without Halliburton. And I don't believe that to be necessary. In fact, the reason why I love this team more than I've loved any other team around here was because of that particular quality, that asset, that team environment. I was curious how other guys were going to step up. And you can make that argument now. You can be even more curious about how they're going to step up. But now you're going to end up having the infiltration of cheapness or being outmaneuvered. And we've had to go through that before, and I don't want to go through that again. I don't like it. So what I'm trying to explain there is we sit here knowing what we know right now. And hopefully this Pacer organization, led by very smart humans, make good decisions. This is all something that is a part of this grand plan that, simply put, has not been initiated yet and we cannot see. I don't want it to be about cheapness. I don't want it to be, about being outmaneuvered, thinking, well, this is our number and nobody can go higher than this because the market is dried up. We saw 5 centers in all go yesterday, 1 returning to his own team, 4 others going in other places. The market had been described to me a number of times on this show as bearing out, not favorable from a 5 position, other than, having money like Brooklyn has. And then what happened was, and this is how it appears right now, that Milwaukee had the wherewithal and the ingenuity to try to maneuver in a fashion, and not only maneuver in a fashion, but also maneuver in a fashion in which you do that against your biggest, most hated rival. I'm assuming that they feel about the Pacers as we feel about the Bucks. So you do that at the expense of your rival, of that team that you hate, of that team that's bounced you in the last 2 postseasons. I don't want it to be like that. I never wanted it to be like that. If you're able and capable, which I feel that they were, and hopefully they still are, but you have to make those particular judgments in the moment. And again, hopefully they have something further down the road that's a part of the plan. But right now, it doesn't look like it's a part of the plan. Right now, it looks like that you kind of played with this so long. What do they say? Play with your food? You play with your food so long, and something opened up, and Milwaukee took advantage of it. You got outmaneuvered by a rival, and/or you're being cheap. And neither one of those things are becoming. You say what you want about Myles, his lack of production in the finals offensively. There's no question about it. However, you don't want to lose him for nothing. You want there to be, you go back to all these deals that we talk about all the time with this team. There's always been, it seems like, a precursor to the deal itself. Something that kind of set the stage to the deal itself. Hopefully that's the case here, because we talk about, the Halliburton deal or the reasons behind how you ended up with Siakam, or the evolution of Aaron Nesmith and how you ended up with him, or the deal that set the pace for you to draft in the second round Andrew Nembhard, seeing something that nobody else did. I hope that this is the case too. You just don't want to see the team that you really fell in love with, and so many of you did, and I saw this. I watched the evolution of everybody getting excited, and I know that the injury to your best player can be massively deflating, and I'm not minimizing that whatsoever. But I don't want to have to maximize the fact that this team was incapable of keeping somebody they wanted to because, A, they were either outmaneuvered, or B, they were too cheap. You just don't want that reflection. So again, sitting here right now, those are some of the thoughts, and hopefully those thoughts will be proven incorrect further down the road. Now, my excitement is this. My excitement is I am very curious to see, and maybe I'm going to be proven wrong. It hasn't happened very often, but maybe I will be. Maybe I'll be proven wrong when Myles goes to Milwaukee and that doesn't work, or as somebody said, now Milwaukee's cooked. I mean, you just use that term because you think it sounds cool, but you're a dork and you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything about it right now. Nobody does. But I am excited to see what happens there. I am excited to see exactly what he adds to it, and I'm also excited to see the impact or lack thereof that his exit has on this team. Because I've always tried to explain to you why I support it and why I had trust in it. Why do you do that? He does this and he does that and he plays with Legos and blah, 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 and look what he's wearing. And that stuff's never mattered to me. What's mattered is what this team has done since the acquisition of Tyrese Halliburton and since, Myles got to play a favorable position without two bigs and got to thrive with Tyrese Halliburton. There is no question that Tyrese Halliburton set the table for him. Now, I also think that Giannis can do the same thing. You watch how many people come over to Tyrese when he has the basketball, right? Yeah, watch how many go to Giannis when he has the basketball. Watch some of the Pacer first-round tape. How many dudes go with him? And then how many dudes subsequently are left wide open? And again, that's something that Myles didn't do in the finals, and maybe that was the situation that cost him the most. I think it's easy to point the finger at the Achilles of Tyrese Halliburton and say that was the moment when they decided that we're not in a similar direction as we were. In the first 7 minutes of that NBA Finals Game 7, everything changed at the 7-minute mark. I want it to be because there is a grand plan and because something is going to work out and because they have trust in this team, not because everybody's going to view them as being outmaneuvered or cheap. Losing a 10-year player for Jack Squad is not a good look. Coming off an NBA Finals 7-game series and being viewed as not wanting to spend the money now is not a good look. And hopefully that's not the case. All right, 239-1070 is the number. Email the address to JMV at 1075thefan.com. Inside the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. You guys can get there. We'd love to have you. Maybe not all of you, but some of you. All right, Todd's going to start here on line 4 at 239-1070. Todd, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, John. How are you? I would be remiss if I didn't ask, how's the calf Achilles going?
You know what? I actually got out against the advisement of absolutely everybody but me because I'm very stubborn. I played on Sunday morning. So, yeah, ouch. I wore a boot there, played, and then put a boot back on. However, my friend John D'Amelio, he taped me up so tight, and really there was a great deal of half-ass in my game. So I was very careful with it. So I did go out there Sunday morning for the first time in a week and a half, and much against all the information that people were giving me about not doing it, I did. But I came out okay. But I wore the boot to it. I wore the boot afterwards, and I'm feeling much better, Todd. So thank you for asking. And believe me, it's much more than just playing as an old guy. I've got to have that availability for my peace of mind. I don't think I can function without doing that. I just don't think. The world's much too nutty and crazy for me to function without hoop. I can't do it.
Good for you. Caveat emptor. Buyer beware.
Thank you, brother.
I was out by the pool. Actually, when I first got the post from Shams, I had to make sure that it wasn't NBA Central or whatever.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
something fake.
So, yeah. So you know what? And I was furious. But I tell you what, I will be the first one on my feet and the loudest applauser when Milwaukee comes to the field house for the first time for Myles Turner. He absolutely deserves it. This is not Paul George, by the way. This is very, very different, and you can't blame him. And I believe he wanted to stay here, in my opinion. But I guess at the end of the day, he's got one contract.
Are you furious with Myles for that decision or the Pacers?
No.
Okay.
I'm absolutely not furious with Myles.
Understand.
He did the right thing. He's probably got one contract left. I mean, 4 or 5 years. I mean, he might be in the league, right? But whatever, So I'm not. I will be the loudest person to applaud for him when he comes back into the field house. I mean, I've got no issues with him. I believe he wanted to stay here. I think you called it right before. I think the Pacers evaluated it as being a soft market, and they could get him on 75 cents on a dollar, and they messed up, in my opinion. You from time to time mention you're not spending the Simons money.
Yeah, I know. I kind of was, though. Yeah, I kind of was in hindsight. Yeah.
But let me say this: the Lakers just sold, right, and the Lakers are more valuable than the Pacers.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
Well, there've been 5. Are there 5 teams that have either sold or on the block right now, which is never a good thing. Yeah.
But let me say this: the value of this franchise, and this includes Caitlin Clark and the Fever, by the way. Pay the tax, man, because the value of this franchise is billions, and not that the Simons are paying for, parking spaces and have car loans, but I mean, pay the money, man, pay the money.
The Pacers have 14-1 in that mid-level, except they can spend $14 million on trying to find a replacement for Myles here, unless they've got something else working. It is tough to not look at it as a cost-cutting maneuver, which to come off of that type of season, and if that proves out to be, Todd, the direction they're going is incredibly disappointing, if that's the case.
By the way, if they sign Myles, they're a top 4 to 6 team in the East anyway. They're not. I mean, you're going to look for more from Mathurin and more from Walker. You got a couple of draft picks. I mean, you're not. It's not like the drain is circling. Without Halliburton, you're not going to be the team you were, but you're going to be a competitive team. And in the East, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, it's insane not to give him what he needs to stay around. It's just insane to me. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Todd, I appreciate your call, man. Thank you very much, and we'll see you out here relatively soon, I would assume, right? A couple of different times here in the month of July.
My guy.
Take it easy, man. Yeah, thank you. I just don't – I know that there's still time for the Pacers, to show that there's something else happening, but you don't want to be defined as being outmaneuvered or cheap here. You don't want that. And I'm not the only one that's suggesting it right now. And if you're thinking, well, now they have they don't have the cap space. They have a little over $14 million. So I would assume easily now you stay, don't you? Under the luxury tax? And then how do you view that? Does anybody out there, well, I guess I should put it in the past tense now. Does anybody out there, did you have a similar belief as I did about this team? Did I just believe in it a lot more than anybody else? Did I have more belief in, Obi being here, and Nembhard and Nesmith and McConnell and Siakam? Did I have just out of my mind judgment and belief in them that was just not the level in which you think that they could reach in the East this year? Just out of curiosity. JMV, I will never understand how putting Legos together made Myles soft or bad at basketball. I will stop right there on you, Larry. Myles couldn't shoot straight in the finals. That was problematic. But, yeah, the whole Lego thing had nothing to do with anything except the jackasses. If you're a jackass, that mattered to you. All non-jackass, all functioning human beings understood that mattered not one ounce. So, yeah, that's basically how it is. And that is cut and dry. That's you're either a jackass or you aren't. And we're just surrounded by a lot of jackasses. All right, quick break. We'll come back. I got more calls on hold. Got Kevin Pelton coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. I got BT, I got Anthony, Cam, and Courtney all loaded and ready to go on this Tuesday as we lead into the 4th of July. And Myles Turner is going to division rival Milwaukee. And Todd brought up a good point. You mad at Myles? You mad at the Pacers? You mad at anybody? It's out of curiosity. What did I get right here? Myles on the decline. Pacers didn't want to pay crazy money for a declining player. Makes sense to me. I don't know if they were paying crazy money. Not true? Crazy money. All right, then. Crazy money. According to C. Fitch, it's crazy money. All right. A non-believer. Just go ahead and put yourself in the non-believing category then. Because I had a belief. It's weird because I think his teammates had a belief too, which makes it really awkward, you would think. Quick break. We'll come back. Your calls and more. Do not go anywhere. Kevin Pelton, top of the hour. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
special message for all the kids watching at home.
Stay out of trouble. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
James over there. I'm John. Thank you for joining us. Kevin Pelton, top of the hour. Sidery is going to be here too. All right, JMV, this decision on Myles indicates the front office's belief that this window has closed and they'll prepare for the next one. This way, they may be able to retain Mathurin or Walker if they keep progressing. I would argue up until this point, I'm not suggesting that you're wrong about their belief of turning the page here. But to suggest that Walker can make a jump right now, Mathurin is still iffy, but as you know, I have a great deal of belief in him. Walker is a tremendous question mark at best. And Pritchard, I trust, deserves the benefit of the doubt. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. However, when you're preparing for the future, and if you knew going into the draft, and I know they had, two second round picks, you're not going to find anything. So maybe that's a bad example. I mean, you Tony Bradley, and I'm assuming you bring back Isaiah Jackson, and you don't address at all the center position for the upcoming season. I'm assuming also what you're suggesting here is that's how they're just also eating it here. They just don't doesn't matter that they didn't go out and get anybody. Doesn't really matter that they have $14 million to try to utilize to find a replacement in a market that is completely dried up right now. While you can put it like that, if I'm those guys, I'm Siakam or McConnell, don't you wonder what the hell a little bit? Are you cool? Oh, great. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, one window's closed and the other one was open. And by the time the other one opens, then I'm Pascal Siakam. I'm going to be 35 years old. Maybe my excuse is I just had a lot more faith in the quality production of this group without Tyrese Halliburton than others had. No harm, no foul. I could be wrong. So you don't adequately at all prepare for it unless you call, Bradley, and or if it takes place, and I'm assuming it will Jackson and Bradley are the fallbacks here. Okay. Chad asked me if they should explore trading Pascal Siakam now. Well, I hope that they can at least maintain now, right? Because that is full bore tanking, and I think that whole thing sucks. I do. Chad, honestly, I don't even want to think about it. Not at all. That would be full-blown tanking. So you go 7 games of the NBA Finals, and then the next season you tank. And I have to sit here and preach team effort, team concept every single day, and you lose. Again, I'm not minimizing Tyrese Halliburton and his impact at all. But you lose Halliburton in what has been a dynamically changed Eastern Conference landscape, and then you're done with it? I don't dig that. JMV, you're not alone in the belief of this team. I felt like I got hit with a sledgehammer with the news today. I've never been so disappointed. I've never been a fan for over 30 years. My disappointment, again, we'll see how it goes. And it's not with, hey, you supported Myles or, you're idiot fanboy or whatever I was called a little bit earlier today. mine is more directed to my belief in the team and how I don't want this organization to look like, in the case of Myles Turner, as it's being explained nationally right now, either A, got outmaneuvered, or B, cheap. That's how I feel. That's what I don't want to live with. Now, hopefully that's not the case. Cam's up next at 239-1070. Cam, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Hey, John, I'm good. I didn't think I was going to have to call for at least maybe a couple days, but now we see this. So I'm one of those guys that obviously has all the NBA reporters' notifications on Twitter, and I was, expecting if they were going to get this deal done with Myles that you were going to see that tweet come around 6:10 last night, right? Like maybe 10 minutes after.
No, you thought the moment I wasn't on yesterday, you thought for sure it was going to be between 3 and 6 in that window. The moment I go, I was off yesterday, and I go, man, if that comes around today and I'm not there, so I guess it's more appropriate that it happened today because I'm back.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just not in that fashion, yeah.
Yeah, but when I saw that when they kind of officially had the opening of free agency at 6 and they were able to sign people, the more time went by, I started to think to myself, I texted my buddies, I said, are you guys prepared if they don't re-sign this guy? I said, I feel like the longer this goes, I mean, obviously something's going on, and I think you already hit the nail on the head, but I think personally, the Pacers PR, they're going to say their thing. Myles is going to say his thing. He loves this city, respectfully so. But I think there in that meeting or whatever happened with his agent or him, they definitely put their foot down, and it was probably a little more.
Well, I mean, Shams says that they lowballed him. Shams says they lowballed him to where his representation went out there and tried to cobble together a different deal. And they didn't want to go into the luxury tax threshold without Halliburton. Thus, that was the point of attack for them. And that's from Shams. That's not from me. And I just hope that that's not the case. I hope that I don't want them to be outmaneuvered or cheap on this. Right? I don't. Now, a lot of people would agree, well, maybe that's a tack that you take without Halliburton. But I just have always had a little bit more of a level of confidence in this group than others. And I would love to gauge the confidence level of Siakam and McConnell and others right now if that's the path they continue on. So hopefully it's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, you play the maximum games you can play in a season. You go to Game 7 when you were underdogs in almost every game of the series. But I guess the last thing I'll try to say real quick is you talked about Siakam getting a little older, and by the time Halliburton comes back, he's going to be year 3 in his contract. I'm 27 years old, and two things the Pacers have never done when I've watched them is, one, go into the luxury tax, and two, they've never embraced a full tank. So obviously, I don't expect them, I guess at this point, to do both of those things. So if that's the case, maybe if they're doing this, they let Myles go and they don't get anything back. Is this maybe the time that they finally do a 2 or 3 for 1 trade, just to maybe with some of these young guys? They're still competitive. They're still right there, I feel like.
Yeah, it would be a tough one, I would think, for guys like Siakam and McConnell, for example, to take. If one of the two scenarios I mentioned, if that were to be true. But I don't know. I would like to think that this is not a full-scale tank, but, any other maneuvers in that capacity, then that's exactly, Cam, how that's going to be described. I appreciate your call, man. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Hang in there, Cam. JMV, are you not upset with the Pacers front office for not fighting for Myles? I'm not. I'm not upset with Myles for leaving. I just don't want them to, again, as I've explained it, I don't want this to be a case of them being outfoxed or cheap. It just doesn't sound like that's going to be the case. I just can't imagine the whole fighting for scenario there. sounds like it was a foregone conclusion to where this is our number and this is going to be it, and then Milwaukee created a different level altogether. And, man, say what you want about it, and who knows how that's going to end up working out for Milwaukee. People want to say, well, you can say Milwaukee overpaid for it. And Milwaukee's trying to do something, and in the process, they're really trying to put the screws to their rival when the rival already has screws to it. It's interesting. BT Dew is on line 3. Hello, BT. How are you?
How you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Man, what do you think about Pete Rose getting in the Hall of Fame?
R.I.P. to Peter Edward Rose right there.
I told James I'd talk about the Reds, and he just laughed. But, man, does the fact that they didn't do a sign and trade, does that say anything to you? That, like Sham said, they lowballed him and they got mad.
Yeah, getting absolutely nothing for him, I think speaks volumes. Yes, I just don't think I don't think you can let that happen. And I mean, and obviously Milwaukee, being the end result here, would have to sting even more.
Well, like you pointed out, people have been saying, well, he's an aging player. Well, Pascal's 2 years older than him, so that makes no sense. And then that guy earlier said all he does is slow the offense down. I don't know what that dude was talking about.
Now, all he did was miss shots. He missed a lot of shots that he used to make and did make in the finals. That's what he did. Didn't do in this case.
When they said he was sick or whatever he was, I kind of think something was wrong with his leg because he seemed to limp a lot, and I don't have any idea.
I just and I think that everything was wrong. His head was swimming. He had no idea where the ball was going when he shot it, and he had been used to for a while feeling pretty confident in it. He lost all confidence, and the one thing that I know, because it's been a study case for me, BT, for the better part of 7 years, is when he has performed, even being as Jekyll and Hyde-ish as I've described it earlier, when he is at his best, he has been overflowing. It's been a volcanic level of confidence. And he was absolutely dry of that in the finals. And you could tell he missed left to right and not back to front. And he didn't have any idea when it was going upon release. Wide open, pressure, whatever. And that's the world in which he lived in. And I think that was certainly more of an impactful world than, being sick or being tired and playing 100-plus games and being worn out, any of those other excuses. I think the excuse was exactly not having any confidence in something that had been a factor and he had leaned on for a number of years. That all of a sudden, it wasn't even all of a sudden it disappeared. It progressively got worse.
Yeah. Well, being the sharpshooter you are, I'm going to take your word.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy.
All right. Good to hear from you, BT. Quick break. We'll come back. Kevin Pelton at the top of the hour. Sidery in the 5 o'clock hour. Myles Turner, a 4-year impactful deal with hated division rival Milwaukee. I saw this is from Doyle here. Anybody care to hear it? I'm not mad at Doyle either. I'm just curious if you care to hear it. Shams got his scoop. Myles Turner got his media cover. The agent got his name promoted by the biggest entity, ESPN, and the name in the NBA media. The Bucks got their star free agent, which means they get to keep Giannis. What did the Pacers get? Screwed. That's what he tweeted. I can't read it, so I don't know exactly how they got screwed. And hopefully it turns out that way. I just don't want it to be the Pacers screwing themselves. To me, here it is also about the look. And hopefully that's not the look. Quick break. Stay right there.
news. Good day, sir.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
James over there, I'm John. Jeff Hopkins says the Pacers tried to bluff and lost. DJ says, JMV, it seems like they did not want to pay more. They were wanting to do another move to just maybe, you think? Any thought there? Well, yeah, clearly they didn't want to. They had a threshold. They didn't want to pay any more and didn't. And that, I think, begs the question that others have also brought up, whether or not Milwaukee took advantage of what had been described as a dried-up financial landscape for Myles Turner. And especially after a day like yesterday where you had 5 and all, including Jaren Jackson Jr. going back to Memphis, but 4 other pivots ending up in different places. And now if you're the Pacers, you're left with a $14 million exception. And for lack of a better description, until further notice, until we see something new, you look like you either got outfoxed or you're cheap. And neither would be becoming. Hopefully that is proven wrong. Because as I mentioned before, I like these guys a great deal. I trust these guys. These guys are savvy as hell. And maybe it's because of my blind loyalty, not to Myles Turner, but just this team. I thought a lot more of this team the way that it was, even without Halliburton. But others did not agree. Thus, others are wrong. Courtney's up next on line 4. Courtney, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Kevin. How's it going?
How you doing? I'm John. Yeah, I'm not Kevin. I'm John, though, Courtney.
Oh, sorry, John.
Kevin's on vacation in Oregon right now, playing golf.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I just got a couple things for it.
Sure.
I'm not mad at Turner leaving. I am mad at him going to the Bucks though. And then on that second hand, I'm kind of cool, what the Pacers are doing. I wouldn't pay him all that money after that terrible performance in that series. It's not worth it to me. That's my opinion.
All right.
Dang it.
That's cool.
What's the name? Yeah. What's Aiton's still out there, so it's
you got to pay a lot of money to a big old quitter. That's good. Anybody else? Quitter. Guy can't win anything. Never won a damn thing in his life, Randy. Oh, I'm sorry. You're Courtney. Randy. Yeah. I called you Randy. It's like you call me Kevin, Randy. Courtney.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Hey, this is payback, but
yeah, I don't think he plays. Oh, he also quit. When he does play, he quits. You don't want that, do you? You want that?
Well,
what makes you want DeAndre Ayton here? What? First of all, they'd have to go. What's he going to want? Is he going to want $14 million? You're going to go into the salary cap, the luxury tax with DeAndre Ayton?
No, I don't know. Ayton probably going to have to take less because ain't nobody going to offer him more except L.A. But L.A.
I wonder if it's going to be Isaiah Jackson, Tony Bradley, and James Wiseman. That's what I wonder if it's going to be. I think that's going to be the three right there.
Now, that's who I'm looking for is if they're going to re-sign James Wiseman because I do like James. I think it wasn't fair that he got hurt in the beginning of the season. I feel like that next season could be a chance for him to show what he has proven when he was, basically in college, what he was supposed to be when he was with the Warriors, and they didn't use him right. So hopefully if they get him another shot, he can prove to everybody that he's worth what he is.
Yeah, just say no to DeAndre Ayton. All right, let the Lakers deal with that.
Okay. That's fair.
All right, take it easy, Courtney. I appreciate that. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Kevin Pelton on the other side. Was it 3 years ago to the day or more when DeAndre Ayton signed the offer sheet here? I think it was 3 years ago today or close to it. Look that up and see what date that is. That's weird. I'm not suggesting there's any interest, and for the love of God, there better not be. What's that guy done at all? That everybody has all these visions of a rebound, and he couldn't face up to save his life. I know, Jeff, that Wiseman, he's been working out here. I believe he is a free agent right now, I believe. Go ahead.
Looks like it was July 14th.
Oh, was it the 14th? It was that deep?
Yep.
So it was like 2 weeks from today. I thought Wiseman was working out here, was he not? When I last talked to somebody, I thought Wiseman was working out here and going to be a free agent. Maybe I'm wrong about that. All right, you want me to go? We'll ask Kevin Pelton that on the other side. Somebody had told me that Wiseman was working out and dunking and looking really good. Who was that? Was it somebody last week? They just told me that? It was just in passing on the air. Huh? That was Rick Carlisle. Yeah, he told the morning guys that, didn't he? All right, I didn't think I dreamt that. Thank you, Todd Meyer. Kevin Pelton down on the other side. Stay right there.
All right, Hamilton. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Now, the news of the day is that of Myles Turner going to the division rival Milwaukee Bucks, and in what many has described as an absolute stunner. 4 years, and then the Bucks doing some work regarding Damian Lillard, cutting him loose and having to eat a lot. What, $25 million? That's more than Bonilla got paid today. Obviously, we've been talking about that throughout the course of the afternoon, too. Yeah, thank you very much, James. I appreciate that. JMV, I trust the front office as well, but they have to have left himself with almost no room to do anything. I guess they could trade more of these guys, but that's it. And then leave me with a quote. This is our number. We won't go above this. Chris Ballard. But he wants to hear that. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. Let's jump on board here with Kevin Pelton, who is with us now to talk some NBA for this and a lot more. Hello, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
All right. So explain us. Help it make sense to people around here. Okay, I'll start right here. Is it the Pacers being outmaneuvered in what had been described as a dried-up market that the availability Milwaukee cobbled together to get Myles Turner from them? Did they hit a threshold on a number and then again get outfoxed? Or is it after the Halliburton injury, there's going to be no luxury tax and they just became cheap? Is it either one of those circumstances to you?
My sense is, that it had been reported at the start of the finals that the Pacers were willing to go into the tax to re-sign Turner. You knew that was what it was inevitably going to take, even if it wasn't clear that there was going to be an offer like this coming for him from another team, because we were looking at it, and you looked at the chessboard, and the Brooklyn Nets had cap space, and maybe the Detroit Pistons had a little bit more than the mid-level, and those were the only teams you were thinking about using cap space. So Milwaukee being in position to make an offer like this did come out of left field, but I would have to imagine that Myles Turner was in communication with the Bucks, and that staying with the Pacers would have been his preference. So my guess is that it's more likely the number and just not wanting to go into the tax, that combination, where it probably would have costed them another rotation contributor. So, the question is sort of, would you rather then have Myles Turner on this deal or have the existing group plus whatever center you can sign using the non-taxpayer mid-level exceptions that you have access?
Okay, well, let's start right there. Kevin Pelton of ESPN, NBA writer, joins us. So after a day in which I think 5-0-1 being Jaren Jackson Jr. signing a bigger deal, obviously being in Memphis, before others went different players at pivot, what is left in the rubble? And I'm assuming we may be looking at those that have had roster spots in the past on this Pacer team as possibilities, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, what will they say Isaiah Jackson playing if he comes back from his injury is an interesting question. But, as far as the starting center, I think the guy you'd have to look at as the obvious fit right now is DeAndre Ayton. After he worked a buyout with the Portland Trail Blazers on Sunday night right before free agency. Obviously someone the Pacers have signed as a free agent to an offer sheet before when they signed that max deal with him as a restricted free agent that the Phoenix Suns very quickly matched. He's not going to bring exactly what Myles Turner does in terms of, the ability to space the floor and then the strength of his rim protection. But if you're getting him at that non-taxpayer mid-level, that's a relative bargain compared to the max money that Aiden has been making.
Can they get him at 14? That was brought up to me just now, matter of fact, and I just poo-pooed it immediately for a variety of reasons, but one is the number. Do you think that they could, if they wanted to, secure him at that number?
I don't think there's going to be a market for him at more than that. And that's more than it's been reported that he gave up on the buyout from the Blazers, which usually is a pretty good estimate of what the player thinks they're going to make somewhere else. The other team I'd be looking at with Ayton is a serious contender is the Lakers, and they don't have at this point access to their full mid-level. There's some ways that you could maneuver around this, but right now, they are looking at having about $5.5 million of that this season committed to Jake LaRavia, who they agreed to a deal with yesterday, and that would leave them with something like $8.5 million to offer Ayton, if that's the mechanism they're planning to go to. So I think Indiana could beat that offer.
So, Kevin Pelton of ESPN's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I want to give credit where credit is due because somebody had just brought that up, and I just missed it. I'm not a fan. I've never been a fan. To me, there's not, other than, this team needing rebounds, that really is, I would rather roll with Isaiah Jackson and James Wiseman and Tony Bradley than bring Ayton in here for that amount. Am I wrong about that? Or is there a lot of stuff I just don't know about him that he does possess that would be of interest to this team that could help them right now and maybe give them interest to have him down the road? Because, again, I just thoroughly dismissed that immediately when it was brought up a moment ago.
I don't think you're entirely wrong when you consider that Portland, again, was willing to pay him as much as they did to walk away and let Donovan Clingan, last year's lottery pick, be presumably their starting center with, Robert Williams and their first-round pick, Young Han Sen, is part of that rotation. So clearly they reached a similar conclusion. I think if you're going to be optimistic about Ayton, you're hoping that you get him back to that level of play that we saw when the Phoenix Suns made the NBA Finals in 2021. He was very locked in and motivated as part of, a very pick and roll centric offense, which he hasn't necessarily had the same opportunity to play in Portland. Particularly if you project this and you'd want this signing, even if the deal was a 1-year deal in terms of value for Ayton, you'd be thinking about how can we have a long-term piece here, and you put Ayton with Tyrese Halliburton. I think that could potentially be a very effective pick and roll deal. And then the other piece of it is you'd have to believe that Ayton is going to be more motivated, having kind of seen that his market is not the max market that it was the last time around, that he's going to have to do things differently to try to rebuild his value and get back to that point.
So Kevin Pelton of ESPN talking about the Myles Turner situation here going to the Bucks. So did the Pacers mess this up for not getting anything at all in return? What's the conclusion that you've drawn, again, without all the information that's necessary here, but your thoughts on why it came to this, why it was Milwaukee, and then why the Pacers were left without anything in return?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, look, the sign and trades are relatively rare at this point, and I don't think Indiana would have wanted to start the negotiations that way. We typically only see them when players, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, for example, he's going to be a sign and trade because Minnesota knew they couldn't afford to re-sign him. So anything they get in return is a positive. And, obviously you were going to trade Turner at the deadline last year because you were trying to make the playoff run that they did in fact make. So to me, the main question is just, should Indiana have been willing to match, or if it was required to beat this offer? And I'm on the fence there. I can see that this, deal might not age very well, when Myles Turner is closer to his mid-30s by the end of a 4-year deal. I can see the Pacers' reservations from that standpoint. And again, obviously their tax situation, created some challenges. But that does point back to, one of the interesting things that comes up here is they wouldn't be in the tax if they had decided to let Andrew Nembhard play out his rookie contract and try to extend him coming off of that contract rather than doing it with the team by declining the team option that they had on this year. That was certainly a justifiable move and one that, I think his value went up in the playoff run. But you do look at that, and that's the kind of decision that forced them into the spot where it was either pay the luxury tax for this Turner contract, dump someone, or let him walk.
I've mentioned this too, and Kevin Pelton of ESPN's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Maybe this is just blind faith, but I love this team because of the team orientation and understand the impact of losing Tyrese Halliburton is massive. I'm not trying to minimize that whatsoever. I thought the quality with this group coming back, Myles being one of those, would continue to be a quality Eastern Conference landscape type of team. Not to the NBA Finals, not to the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm sure, but quality nonetheless to sustain and survive until Halliburton gets back. Was that blind faith to you, or do you think that was something this team was going to be worthy of if they were able to do it?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. There's still, you've got multiple ball handlers with Nembhard and TJ McConnell. McConnell, you don't want to extend him to 30 minutes a game because that's not really conducive to the style he plays. But, could he play a little bit more during the regular season this year? Yeah, I think that's plausible. And, if you're looking at somewhere in the mid-40s win range, that might be all it takes to get into the top 6 in the Eastern Conference next year. I think that was all reasonable. But, it is probably a little tougher if I'm looking at it from the Pacers' perspective to justify paying the luxury tax for a team like that than it is, had Halliburton been healthy, and you're thinking, how are we getting back to the NBA Finals?
How'd Milwaukee end up doing this, and will they regret how they did it with the Lillard situation and then bringing Myles on board in this fashion?
Yeah, I mean that was the surprising part of it. Again, is we weren't looking at them with a team with cap space, and to get there, they're going to have to waive and stretch Damian Lillard's contract, as you mentioned at the start here. $20+ million cap hit on their books for 5 seasons now. Probably beyond the length of time that Giannis Antetokounmpo is still going to be in Milwaukee, realistically speaking. I still think it could work out for them, because even if they get to the point where Giannis says he's ready to move on, I do think Myles Turner will have trade value on this contract, and you're sort of weighing that against what else could they have done with the cap space you're giving up on the dead salary for Damian Lillard in a post-Giannis era. I think that's not quite a wash, but it's not a huge downside, and I do think it gives them a path to being competitive in the East this season. I still think they have to find a way to turn Kyle Kuzma into a better contributor on the wing, but if they can do that, I do think Myles Turner is an upgrade on what Brook Lopez was at the end of his career. We saw, Myles Turner outplay Brook Lopez pretty badly in that first-round series between these two teams. So I do think there's a path here for Milwaukee to be relevant in the East now, and that's what they want to try to do with Giannis Antetokounmpo, considering his future.
All right, Kevin Pelton of ESPN's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I do want to double back and wrap up the DeAndre Ayton quality segment that we had right there with 3 or 4 questions I lobbed at you. Do you think that the Pacers would be considered as a front runner for him, given the situation whatsoever? Was that a direction you would expect them to go? Because I want to make sure I get this clarified before I move on.
I certainly think it's realistic. I mean, what they can offer him is, a starting spot, an opportunity. They're going to need a lot of offense between the loss of Turner and not having Halliburton next season. There's an opportunity for him to play a big role there. Again, I think the Lakers are clearly a very attractive spot, if they're interested as well, because, it's both a starting role and a chance to play in LA, with Luka Doncic and LeBron James, 2 guys who are going to be very conducive to his game. But, I think those are the 2 teams right now I look at as the most sensible landing spots for it.
Some of those rumors or reports that you had coming out of Portland and the reason why they decided to go ahead and pay him to leave, do you buy all those? And do you buy that him going to, and I talk about this team as being a fantastic team in orientation, both on and off the floor. Do you think that's a situation where he would thrive and maybe not be what people believe him to be right now, was, more of kind of a half-ass malcontent that he seemed to be in Portland as to the reason why they wanted an exit strategy on him?
Well, I'd certainly rather put him in that situation than one that isn't like that, I guess I'd say. I mean, I think, Phoenix, when he was coming up in the league, was also an awesome situation where you were playing on a contending team with one of the best leaders in NBA history in Chris Paul, and that didn't work out for DeAndre Ayton. So that alone isn't necessarily going to be enough. But, I think, again, you're going to have to hope that this experience has humbled him a little bit, where, one of the things that he said when he got to Portland is he doesn't have to prove his value because he's on a max contract. Well, you're not on a max contract anymore, and frankly, you're probably not going to be anywhere close.
So Kevin Pelton on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Are you watching these Eastern Conference teams like Atlanta and Orlando doing some major moving to try to think that maybe next year can be a dynamic window given the whole landscape and the players that have been lost for next year in the East?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the bummers about this whole off season is how much these Achilles injuries that we saw during the playoffs between Halliburton, Lillard, and also Jason Tatum have really shaped the off season. You've got Boston, kind of similar to Indiana, also taking a step back for next season without Tatum. And that does create this opening in the East that Orlando and Atlanta are two teams that are trying to fill. And I really particularly love what the Magic or what the Hawks are doing. The Magic paid a heavy price to get Desmond Bane. Love the fit there. And I think that move looks better with the opening in the East. But Atlanta has managed to both get better for next season with the additions of Nickeil Alexander and Kristaps Porzingis, and then also improve its long-term future by getting this pick that's coming, the better of New Orleans and Milwaukee's first-round picks next year. That is an incredibly valuable thing to have, and the Hawks made an incredible trade to get that on draft night.
Any major impactful moves you foresee coming up at all? Currently, where we are, the first day of July with the NBA offseason in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be some unexpected dominoes to fall, but it is interesting that, free agency moves so quickly now. You've already got a number of teams that you're looking at, like, basically we're set. Like, maybe there's going to be some minimum free agents here and there. So, that Ayton signing is one of the big remaining dominoes. I think I'm keeping an eye on Al Horford, where he lands. He's someone that could really make a difference to a championship contender. We'll see if that's someplace that Indiana tries to get in, because obviously he's got a fairly similar skill set to Myles Turner, although he wouldn't be a long-term solution. That's, definitely a short-term deal for Horford, who is 39. But, I think those are some of the big free agents remaining or at the center spot.
All right, Kevin, what are you writing about? Where can people read it? Where can they find your work right now? I want to direct them to it.
Yeah, all of this. It should be right there on the NBA homepage at ESPN.com. I'm grading all of the free agent moves and then also the trades that we're seeing.
Oh, the grades. I dig the grades. All right. What grade are you grading out the Pacers right now? Are we incomplete here in Indianapolis?
Yeah, it's an incomplete, but I think it's trending towards a C or lower, unfortunately.
Oh, a C? C or lower. All right, give me something ideal. In terms of Myles, how do you want, and this is obviously still with Halliburton and his injury here, what did you expect to see the Pacers to do, and how do you evaluate where they are, at least still with an opportunity to do more, but how do you evaluate where they are presently?
Yeah, I figure just give you a lot of status quo for the Pacers this offseason and, sort of run it back and then maybe figure out mid-season, what sort of moves make sense in terms of managing the tax bill. I mean, Bennedict Mathurin is still going to be an interesting question this offseason. He's due for an extension to his rookie contract. Do the Pacers believe in him as a core piece of this team going forward, or do you see him as more of a luxury who's, the offense that he brings off the bench, the dynamic play that we saw, in Game 3 of the NBA Finals, is that something that, is worth having while he's on this cheap rookie contract, but maybe not worth paying for down the road? If that's the case, then maybe we do see a trade involving him at some point this offseason.
You don't see any further tear down with this Pacer team right now, do you, from the core?
I think that would be it. I'd be surprised if it was anything certainly involving, any of the starters or TJ McConnell or, any pieces like that.
All right. And did you think Turner was coming back here? Did you believe that to be a foregone conclusion?
Until I woke up this morning and saw the news out here on the West Coast. I 100% believed it.
Hey, always a pleasure, Kevin. Man, I appreciate you jumping on here. We may utilize your resources here further down the road. Thanks again.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
It's Kevin Pelton of ESPN, ESPN.com on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Sideries on the other side. So I gave all of you that want DeAndre Ayton again, I gave you some love because I thoroughly dismissed it. I even used the term poo-poo. I dismissed it earlier. When was it? Randy or Rodney or Courtney. Who was that? Courtney. Who called? I dismissed it. But as fair and impartial person as I am, I doubled back and caught everybody up. DeAndre Ayton. So you get excited about somebody that the team just paid to leave. Oh, yeah? Anybody? Anyone? Quick break. We'll come back. Sidery on the other side. Do not go anywhere. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, welcome back. Cidery in just a second. Can you name one instance where an established player has been bought out, then flourished on the other side? I can't. Teams don't dump good players in the NBA unless a problem is occurring or they're washed up. Benji says the same Bucks just waived Lillard, so he's worthless too. Players get waived for plenty of reasons. Adam says not to trigger anyone by saying assets and draft capital, but this is, or what is the Pacers' next move? Keep the young guys, jettison the rest? That's a question. Benji says, why Ayton? I'll tell you. Ayton does everything we couldn't do against the Knicks, Cavs, and OKC. All right, hold on a second. For the love of all that is holy, they beat the Knicks, they beat the Cavs, and they took OKC to 7 games. Rebound and not be soft. And against OKC, they turned the ball over 20-plus times, 30-plus points off of turnovers. That wasn't the stinking problem, numbnuts. God dang. Sorry about that. What's he done? Averaged 10 rebounds. So the Pacers win Game 7 with DeAndre Ayton. Okay. Hey, Benji, I love you, man. There is zero way that mattered. Good Lord Almighty. That wasn't the issue. We all know it. They lost Halliburton, and they turned it over 20-plus times and had 30-plus points given up off of turnovers. That was the problem. Otherwise, they were in 7 games in the NBA Finals. What the hell? I know that you want to rewrite history about some things to discredit, but have an ounce of understanding. Just an ounce. And be happy, too, because most of you got what you wanted out of this. And we'll see how that works out. That's yet another reason that I can be excited. And you can be excited, too. If it doesn't work out, you can continue to hammer on my X account. And I can get excited if he performs well and give you a big old fat I told you so. See? Both sides could benefit. We'll see. The story lives on. But stop with the discrediting. Rebounding and soft. Now, if you were to say this, Benji, if you were to say was broke as a joke, yes, correct. But rebounding and soft, come on, man. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. Cidery is joining us now. Hello, Cidery. How are you?
I'm doing great, JMV. How about yourself?
All right. Today's been a little weird, right? So where do we begin? And this has been described in a variety of ways. Kevin Pelton just joined me. And I don't think he necessarily it is tough because we're still living in the moment and things could change and still could change dramatically one direction or the other here. But why, as an end result, are we here with Myles Turner going to the most hated rival to the Pacers for 4 years and the amount of money he got? How did we end up here, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of stunning, wasn't it? I was never imagining Myles Turner not only leaving in the Indiana Pacers, but to sign the Milwaukee Bucks at the price he did, $27 million annually, a trade kicker, a player option included. When you throw that all in there, John, I have a hard time seeing Indiana was going to match that type of deal. But to have him go to Milwaukee and to have him play him 4 times a year, potentially more than that, that is a really interesting angle to all of this. And now you have to imagine what exactly is going to happen for this team, because now you have a massive hole at center and they didn't want to pay over $25 million for him. So it's a huge little conundrum now they're in.
So do you think that this will be viewed by many Pacer fans as, the Pacers not wanting Myles and not wanting the luxury tax, or Myles kind of sticking it to the Pacers? Can that be viewed in any different way here?
I think it's kind of both, because according to Shams Charania, what he reported on SportsCenter earlier today was the Pacers were kind of lowballing Myles Turner. They were not going anywhere near $25 million a year, not even near what he got, around $27 million a year. So for him to end up go to Milwaukee, it sounds like him and his agent were pretty frustrated by the Pacers. They were not going to get close to what he wanted, which is in that $25-30 million a year range. So they went to the open market, found a team in Milwaukee that's willing to waive and stretch Damian Lillard, which is $22.5 million on their contract books until 2030. So a huge investment from the Bucks here to make it happen. But with Myles Turner now going here, I think it's more of a case of both, where I think Myles Turner was really pissed off at the Pacers that they kind of lowballed him. But I think now with the Halliburton injury, John, I mean, these are the questions now you have to say, is it worth paying this team, a luxury tax team with Tyrese out next year? And now we have our answer.
Do you think it was? Do you think it would have been? Did you have a belief in this team and the quality? Because I did. And I've mentioned this a couple of different times on this show. Maybe I'm blinded by that particular loyalty to a group, even without the magnitude of a Halliburton for a year, to be able to sustain at a high enough, quality enough level in this landscape of the Eastern Conference. Do you think that was an act? Clearly, I think it's a view maybe the Pacers front office-wise don't share, and maybe it's ownership that don't share the similar view here. I think to further notice, I'm a little bit let down on talking this group up as the ultimate team. And then, even though I know the magnitude of Tyrese Halliburton, you lose him, and then it seems like to many all's lost. I don't happen to believe it that way.
I think, honestly, what it came down to for them, when you look at the deal and how it was structured, it sounds like it's going to be a deal from Milwaukee's side where it's actually backloaded. So it's going to be $23 million in year one. Then it's going to keep going up higher and higher. So 25, 27, 29 over the final 3 years of that contract. When you see the way this team is constructed and how Myles Turner got paid, and it's obvious that it feels like it's an ownership-based decision, right, John? Just because we even heard from Brian Windhorst a couple of days ago where they were saying this is a done deal. Like, Myles Turner is going to be back with the Indiana Pacers. That was 4 days ago. So something had to have happened behind the scenes where all of a sudden they don't want to pay Myles Turner market value. I mean, we just saw Jakob Poeltl of the Toronto Raptors, John, get $28 million a year, who is nowhere close to the player that Myles Turner is on both ends of the court. So I think it's a really frugal decision from Indiana, but I also think it's the smart long-term play, because if Tyrese Halliburton didn't tear his Achilles, I think it's fair to say that this team pays Myles Turner. They go into the luxury tax, no hesitation. But with Tyrese out all next year, potentially into 2027, might not be himself until then, is Myles Turner worth paying this money to when you're not going to have Tyrese Halliburton around? And that's just a big conundrum here. I don't know if I would have done that if I'm willing to pay Myles Turner $25 million a year if I know Tyrese Halliburton is not going to be around for at least a year or year plus. So that is a real tough one. I think it's an even tougher sting, though, John, because for him to go to Milwaukee, that just makes it a little bit more tough for them, because I don't think anyone ever imagined Milwaukee would be in that position to get Myles Turner. But for them now to do that, that's a pretty stunning development.
Well, and part of it is, too, Evan, and Bobby Marks told me this last week, and others have been on the show saying, there's no real market outside of Brooklyn for Myles, so no worries, something's going to get done. And that's why you had that particular angle. And nobody felt that Milwaukee was going to have the ingenuity and certainly, show the gumption as they did to make that move on Lillard to bring, they cobbled together a market spot and a landing position for Myles that clearly did not exist until here recently.
No, it literally didn't exist until today. Like, this was never a possibility in the league circles. No one talked about the Milwaukee Bucks going after Myles Turner. Of course, they needed a center. They're going to let Brook Lopez walk, going to the Los Angeles Clippers on a 2-year deal worth $9 million per year. But to go in the direction of Myles Turner, but to also add in the part where you're paying Damian Lillard, who's a max-level player. I know he just tore his Achilles, but to have that on the books, $22.5 million through 2030, we're not even sure Giannis Antetokounmpo is even going to be around at that point. That is a hell of a roll of a dice, a huge risk for Milwaukee, where it's really intriguing to me the more I think about it too, John, because they're kind of buying into Myles Turner as the number 2 guy. He's never been the number 2 guy before. Unless they're making a splash move out of nowhere with little assets, Myles Turner's going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo's number 2 option. So that's just really intriguing to me. Is Myles Turner going to be breaking out even more in Milwaukee? There's not a real point guard for him to get the ball to him. So it's a lot of questions, and there is answers with Myles Turner in Milwaukee. But kudos to his agent. He really manufactured a market there. He got a team that was interested, paid him what he wanted, and Indiana just couldn't match that. So I never expected that. I thought Myles Turner would be back this year, and for him to go to Milwaukee, it truly was a jaw dropper of free agency.
Don't you want to know what like Pascal Siakam or T.J. McConnell think about this?
Oh yeah, and especially even I was thinking to myself today when I saw the news come across, like, what's Rick Carlisle thinking? What is anyone in that locker room thinking? Where it's not Myles' fault, of course, but it's like, man, you're going to Milwaukee. Of all places, you're going to Milwaukee. Like that is a direct rival, a direct division rival at that. And if Giannis is around in Milwaukee next year, if that team is healthy, they're going to be a good team next year, like they are with Indiana. So I have to really wonder here what exactly the future plan is for Milwaukee, because I don't think the team is that great around Giannis, but to go out and get Myles Turner in the aggressive way they did, man, kudos to them, because that is a huge, huge roll of the dice.
All right, so what do you think is next? Do you think DeAndre Ayton is a legitimate possibility, as some suggest to me should be?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I've asked both sides on this. I've asked a source within the Pacers on this. I've also asked a person close to DeAndre Ayton who I've known throughout his career in Phoenix. I've gotten no response from either side on this, so it makes me kind of think it might be real, where it kind of goes against what this team is building, though, with DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton, I will say this. We had this conversation about 2 years ago at this point when they offered him that max contract. He is a great player, but he's not an all-star trajectory player. He is a 15 and 12 kind of guy. He's a great rebounder. If you're looking at a huge difference between Ayton and Myles Turner, he is an awesome rebounder. He is one of the best rebounders in the league, and that's even when he's not locked in. His motor is the one thing that you look out for. Is he culture-wise, character-wise, he does not go with this locker room. As far as we're hearing a lot of noise out of Portland that he just was throwing tantrums. He was upset when he got benched, and it's just not the kind of player you put into this ecosystem unless you really buy into this culture. And with no Tyrese Halliburton next year, I just have a hard time seeing why Ayton would go here. I have a hard time also seeing why Ayton wouldn't go to the Los Angeles Lakers too, because there's a lot of buzz on both sides there. I think Ayton and the Lakers will get done. But I also think too, if it's not DeAndre Ayton, John, it might be a trade, because now you open up all these trade possibilities after that trade before during the finals where you get your 2026 pick back. All of your future picks, all of your future swaps are now on the table through 2032 in a deal where if you want to go, let's say, get an Onyeka Okongwu from Atlanta or a Walker Kessler from the Utah Jazz, some of these young centers that are pretty cheap, probably cost you a draft pick or two. Now you have the flexibility to do that. So I kind of would lean more towards them making a shrewd play for a younger big man like a Kessler or an Okongwu than an Ayton. But if they do go in the direction of DeAndre Ayton, that does say they're pretty bought into the idea of him working within this culture.
Yeah. All right. Well, and then other than that, I guess we're talking Isaiah Jackson. You know, obviously we know the situation with Tony Bradley, and James Wiseman is another name that was here and has been working out of the facility. We know that. Rick Carlisle told that to the morning show going back a couple of weeks ago. So to me, those almost are more legitimate options right now, the way they're going into it, than anything else. Does that make sense?
No, I agree with you. And center by committee with this team, especially next year, it could make sense, especially if you're saying, hey, we're not paying the tax. I mean, we got the answer today. They're not paying the tax. They don't think this team is a championship-worthy team. We're not paying Myles Turner unless, again, a rabbit just comes out of a hat out of nowhere with this roster. They're going to be a good team next year, but not a title-contending team. And if you want to roll a Tony Bradley and an Isaiah Jackson as a center by committee, sure, it's going to be pretty cheap. You get those guys back on some couple $1 million contracts. Isaiah Jackson maybe takes a 1-year qualifying offer after the torn Achilles. But I think they're going to be shooting for more here. I think Myles Turner in the finals, I know you love him, John, but I think we kind of saw his warts a little bit in the finals, where if his three-point shot's not falling and he's not really attacking the glass, there's not much else he provides at an elite level as far as his defense isn't the same it was a couple years ago. But, like, he's a different version of Myles Turner than what we've seen before. So I think they're going to prioritize more of a rebound defense first center that can stretch the floor. I think it's a better fit for what they need as far as what you saw against Oklahoma City, other teams within this Western Conference, Eastern Conference race right now. I think you're going to get going for more size, more aggressiveness there. So that's what I target. If they're going away from the stretch 5 model like a Myles Turner, if they don't want to pay him that money, that's the kind of direction I'm thinking they might be going in.
So you said a stretch 4 that can shoot it? Is that what you just said?
Oh no, I meant I think they're going away from that potentially, away from Myles with the stretch 5. Maybe you're going more in that Ayton type of direction or the Okongwu, Walker Kessler direction where it's more rebound first, defense first. If you can shoot from the 3, that's great, but we have enough shooting around you.
Oh yeah, okay. So enough offense. Hey, okay. I don't know if I trust that philosophy. I still think this team is in need of offense. Maybe that's my angle. Always going to be my lean as far as offense is concerned. But I'm sorry, rebounding was not their issue. The reason why they lost Game 7 is because they couldn't shoot it straight, and he couldn't shoot it straight, and because they turned it over 24 times.
Right.
I would be. I guess what I'm saying here, and it is entirely fair because he was awful. Really all the way around, but especially offensively in the finals. And maybe if he wasn't that awful, we're not here. But to suggest over the long term of a season that his level of offense, especially in what has become bread and butter for them, the pick and pop. And I know it's different without Halliburton, but they still run that even with Nembhard out there. Without that threat, I don't know about your offensive prowess. I think that's a little bit problematic to me. But who am I, right? I've only been right 1,000 times. Why would I be wrong now?
So here's an interesting counter angle to this whole saga today, and this is something I posted earlier today on Twitter about it, because now I'm really curious to see what they do with this player. Is now you let Myles Turner go. What's next for Benedict Mathurin, who is now extension eligible, who has a huge lane ahead of him now with no Tyrese Halliburton, no Myles Turner? He could average 20 points per game next year if he's back on this roster. If he's a potential super 6-man or a starting guard next to Andrew Nembhard at point guard, who I imagine is going to be the starting point guard next year, I don't see why that wouldn't be a possibility if Mathurin's on this roster next year. So I've heard nothing, though, about potential extension with Mathurin and the Pacers. I've not heard any conversation on either side that started. That could change within the next day or so. Who knows? But if they're not going to pay Myles Turner, are they willing to pay Benedict Mathurin, who is, of course, way younger? He has a way different skill set. But these are questions that you got to start asking now, because if you're not going to pay Myles Turner, are you going to pay Mathurin, or are you going to pay other guys? And Mathurin's next on the list there.
So Evan Sidery right there comes on all the time. We appreciate that very much. You can find him on the social media platform X in what has been a busy day today, what has been a busy couple of days, but certainly got more interesting here locally earlier with Myles Turner going to the Milwaukee Bucks. Evan, I always appreciate that, my man. We'll catch up a little bit later on, I'm sure.
Hey, always appreciate the invite, John. Anytime. Thanks.
It's Evan Sidery on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Yeah, I don't know if I overlook the amount of offense. And again, I know that it's a bad example because of the finals that he had, but you look the entirety of the season, and it was one of the reasons. I know you can look past it now, and I know some of you are angry. Some of you were angry after the finals, but you look back, and it was a legitimate reason. You can ask anybody. I'd be careful with that angle of it, but that's just me. Quick break, we'll come back. Final time with you and I at 239-1070. We'll get you set for tomorrow's show as well. Do not go anywhere. It's 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
JMV.
Are you kidding?
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Now, your Harris Hoosier Park race of the day was Matthew. Premier Romeo paid $5.60 on a $2 bet. $2 exacta was an $11.20 payout, and the 50-cent trifecta went for $28.35. Your Harris Hoosier Park race of the day. Matthew gets 50 in betting, 50 in dining, courtesy of Harris Hoosier Park Racing and Casino. That is in Anderson. We'll do it again tomorrow in the 5 o'clock hour. Your Harris Hoosier Park race of the day. Man, what an incredible afternoon of content. And you thought we were going to go through a down cycle, didn't you? Yeah, not so fast. The Myles Turner news, how that will massage the lack, I should say, of luxury tax. And some of the alternatives I'm sure we'll get back into tomorrow. Bobby Marks is going to join us, the front office expert from ESPN. He's on the show tomorrow. I mentioned, too, Tucker Barnhart called it an MLB career yesterday, and we want to get him on. He was scheduled for today. Tucker joins us on the show coming up tomorrow. And Tricia Whitaker and Sydney Parrish, they have a podcast. You know, Tricia used to do the Rays, used to work at Fox 59, does Friday Night Baseball on Apple TV. It is awesome. And Sydney Parrish, the former Miss Basketball from Hamilton Southeastern, the daughter of the awesome Sean Parrish of Owen Valley fame, and the former player at IU. They're going to do a podcast. They are both going to join us on the show coming up tomorrow as well. So very happy for them, like them a great deal. That is just a part of what we're going to be doing coming up on tomorrow's show. Anybody that's on hold right now, I apologize for having to leave you here. It has been a lengthy, content-filled day. Tell James, let James know, and we'll get you back on in short order on tomorrow's show. Even if you're going to be a jackass to me, just let James know that. Now we'll get it done for you. Again, Shams had the story. Myles Turner, 4 years, $107 million deal with the Bucks. Player option for year 4, 28-29. That was the big news of the day. That was our discussion. Well done with all of you out there. And we'll see how this changes. We'll see what the Pacers have in mind. And we'll move forward with it. Get back with you tomorrow coming up at 3 o'clock. James, great job out of you today. Evan Sidery, Kevin Pelton, Greg Rakestraw, podcast 1075thefan.com. Thank you all. Tomorrow at 3, we're back with you again. Have a great night.